So very good morning, my dear students. So today in the basic microbiology and phytopathology class, so we are going to continue the second part of the kingdom fungi, right? So in the last class, we started the classification of these plant pathogenic fungi, right? So plant pathogenic fungi, you can classify it into two broad categories, right? So I can go back and I can revise this one. So fungal-like organism and the true fungi. So in the true fungal-like organism, completely we discussed in the last class, right? Completely we discussed in the last class. So today we are going to move in the true fungi group, kingdom fungi, right? Kingdom fungi. In the kingdom true fungi, right? So why we call it as a true fungi is because this fungi cell wall is a chitin, and also it produces some mycelium, and walls contain other than the chitin is a glucose, and also they don't have these fungi they don't have any chloroplasts, right? Chloroplasts. So the true fungi we are classifying, there are four big phylums, right? The first phylum is Chytridiomycota, right? Other three phylums, we call it as Zygomycota, Ascomycota, and Basidiomycota. The three phylums and the plus Chytridiomycota, four phylum coming under the kingdom true fungi or fungi. In this, among the four, this Chytridiomycota, we classify this one is a bit lower group, right? Bit a lower fungi group. So why? Because they are only producing zoospores as a sexual spores, right? And many times they are reproducing asexual. Many times they are reproducing asexually, unless the conditions okay, only they are producing sexual reproductions. So under the phylum Chytridiomycota, so there is a class we call it as an Chytridiomycetes. In this Chytridiomycetes, there are different genus, right? Different genus. So one is the Physoderm, right? We call it as a Physoderma maidis. It is causing the brown spot on corn, right? Physoderma maidis. This fungi is not present in Sri Lanka, but other genus group, right? Certain other genus group, it is not causing. We call it as a one genus. We call it as an syncretum, right? We call it as an syncretum. So this is also causing some of the leaf spot diseases on ornamentals. They are not also causing a bigger problem in Sri Lanka, but we are suspecting that this Physoderma can come into the Sri Lanka when we are importing the planting material. So therefore, I consider this one, the Physoderma, is a bit important group under the kingdom Chytridiomycota, right? Under phylum Chytridiomycota. So mainly there is a confusion in the literature. Some literatures they are classifying Chytridiomycota, but many advanced literatures they are not considering the Chytridiomycota. They are considering the other three: Psychomycota, Ascomycota, and Basidiomycota as a true fungi groups. These Psychomycota are non-motile asexual spores. They are producing asexual spores. We call it as a sporangium, and we call it as a sporangiospores. And also they are producing some of there is no any zoospores. Mainly the Chytridiomycota groups and the Pythias family groups, they are producing zoospores as an asexual, right? Zoospores as an asexual zoospores as an asexual mode of reproduction. But many others belongs to Psychomycota. They are producing sporangiospore, and Ascomycota fungi, they are producing conidiospores. So these fungi, so sometimes it show the sexual dimorphism, will not show the sexual dimorphism, but scientifically they can produce the contrastic we call it as genotypes. We call it as a plus and minuses, as we studied in the last class. The Pitheaceae family, they are Phytophthora, they are producing the plus and minuses. Then the zygotes are forms. The zygotes are producing the oospores, the sexual spores. But here, the Psychomycota also, there are the chances of nuclear fusions from contrastic fungal filaments, or plus and minuses, or male and female. Then they can able to form fusion of these two morphologically similar gametes and produces zygospores as a sexual spores. Right? Zygospores as a sexual spores. This phylum Psychomycota also you can other class we call it as a Zygomycetes. Under the phylum Psychomycota, the class is there, we call it as a Zygomycetes. The Zygomycetes class, commonly we call it as a wheat fungi groups. Fungi four groups mean mold fungi and the botrytis, soft rot causing fungi groups, rhizophus, botrytis, mycorrhizae. So these are the fungi groups coming under the phylum Psychomycota. Right? So in the phylogenic position, you can find kingdom true fungi, phylum Zygomycota, class Zygomycetes, order Mycorrhizae. Under the order Mycorrhizae, you can find the different genuses. One genus is we call it as a Rhizophus. Rhizophus is causing the mold in bread and the soft rot in these fruits and vegetables. Mainly in the veg season, you would have seen that many fruits and bread, if you are keeping the bread for 2 to 3 days, definitely you can expect these fungus, Rhizophus, the bread will become a blackish color, right? Blackish color. Another one is there, the Canonephora, we call it as Canophora, we call it as a Canophora cucurbitaceae. Yes, that is causing the soft rot and scarce, means Cucurbitaceae family, but under wet condition only can cause the disease, but we are not considering as a true diseases. But why? After harvesting only it can causing this disease. If there is a damage only, it can causing the diseases. The mucor also there, so you can see Rhizophus and mucus are important bread mold fungi. We call it as a mold fungi. That are causing, or sometimes we call it as a wheat fungi. Wheat. Another one is their glomales, right? So glomales, so there is a confusion in the glomales because in the earlier literature it is coming under the Zygomycota. Sometimes they are misclassified under the Chytridomycota, but from this new classification, doesn't matter, you can study under this Zygomycota. It's an order glomales. There are another one order is a Mycorrhizae. The second order is we call it as a glomales. Glomales mainly considering coming the Mycorrhizae. The last class I touched it as a biofertilizer. You can use that. It's a beneficial fungi. We call it as a Mycorrhizae. Vascular arbuscular mycorrhizae is coming under the one group. Vascular arbuscular mycorrhizae or mycorrhizae, or we call it as an endomycorrhizae or ectomycorrhizae. We will study in the coming slides. So these are coming glomales. We call it as a glomales coming under the order glomales of phylum Zygomycota. So another genus under the glomales genus, we call it as a glomus. These there are different 1, 2, 3, 4 genuses are there, but don't worry about the genuses. If you are planning to study these fungi in your advanced career, definitely you can go deeply. The second phylum is an Ascomycota, right? The Ascomycota, we call it as a sect fungi. The sexual stage we call it as an telomorph, and asexual stage we call it as an anomorph. So there is a problem in this Asexual because earlier some fungi considered under the Chytridiomycota now under classified in the Asexual because so these sexual and asexual stages confusions. If they are under sexual stage, we call it as a telomorph. So asexual stage we call it as an anomorph. Why? For example, if you are taking the Fusarium coming under the Asexual, some species of Fusarium, it will not produce sexual spores. For example, the Trichodoma. Some of these coming under the Asexual will not produce sexual stage. For example, Trichodoma. But some are producing sexual spores. For example, Fusarium. So that is a confusion. And yeast, they are producing sexually. And some of the, even the Fusarium also, some species producing the sexual spores, showing the sexual reproduction. Some are not showing the sexual reproduction. That's what we call it as a telomorph and anomorph. Mainly, this produces conidia or conidiospores as an asexual spores. So you should not forget, if the fungi group is producing sporangiospores, they are coming under the Chytridiomycota as well as Zygomycota. Right? So they also produce, the Chytridiomycota, so I am wrong, right? Chytridiomycota, they are producing zoospores as an asexual spores. Zoospores, Z-O-O-S. Zygomycota producing sporangiospores as an asexual spores. Ascomycota producing conidiospores as an asexual spores. Please don't forget it. Chytridiomycota, they are producing zygospores as an asexual spores. Zygomycota producing sporangiospores as an asexual spores. Ascomycota producing conidiospores as an asexual spores. Right? Asexual spores. Sometimes some Ascomycota fungi, they are also producing fruiting bodies. Under the fruiting bodies, you can find the ascospores as a sexual spores. That Ascomycota produces ascospores. So mainly they are they are producing, there are three types of fruiting bodies, like a mushroom, right? Three types of fruiting bodies. These fruiting bodies we call it as an aciviruli, and P is a silent cyanida, right? Cyanida and aciviruli. So there are fruiting structures. These under the fruiting structures, they will produce ascus. Inside the ascus, you can expect 8 spores. That's what we call it as an Ascomycota, 8 spores producing fungi. Ascus means 8 in the Latin word, ascus. Sexual spores. Sexual spores produces under the asco. Asco is a fruiting-like structure. There are different type of ascus they are producing. One is we call as a cyanida. Other one is we call as an aciviruli. Right? Common fruiting body. This we are classifying this producing the how they are showing that different morphometric characters. We are classifying this one as a 3 classes. Right? 3 classes. One is Archiascomycetes. Second class is Saccharomyces. Third class is Filamentous Ascomycetes. There are 3 classes we are dividing. Right? First is Archiascomycetes. Second one is Saccharomycetes. Third one is Filamentous Ascomycetes. In the Archiascomycetes, there is not much important plant, so vegetables or other crops, they are not producing any disease. But in higher trees, they are producing their diseases mainly. But in 1 or 2 causes, the cases are there. For example, Traphrina, they are causing the blister or the leaf curling. But mainly, Archiascomycetes are not much economically important to cause the diseases on vegetables and the orchards. Mainly, but the trees in the temperate countries, they are causing the damages, right? Peach leaves and plum pocket oak leaves. They are in the temperate region. In the snow conditions, these trees can grow. And the Saccharomyces, you all know, are the yeast groups, right? Yeast groups. So they are we call it as a single cell organism, right? Single cell or organism, the unicellular organism. So reproduces by budding. Reproduces by budding. So there are genuses we call it as an Galactomyces and Saccharomyces. Galactomyces causing the sour rot is a disease causing organism. Saccharomyces is a beneficial organism. We call it as a bread yeast. For the food industry, mainly we are using the Saccharomyces for fermentation purposes. And also you are consuming this one high proteinous marmite. It's a vegetable protein. It's a purely an yeast. Saccharomyces. Marmite is a purely you are consuming an organism. Yeast. Right? Yeast is a high proteinous yeast. You are consuming this one as a food, especially vegetarian people and vegetarians. We call it as a high proteinous food. It's a marmite. It's a commercial product from Saccharomyces. The filamentous ascomycetes. The filamentous ascomycetes are very important groups because many powdery mildews coming under this filamentous groups. Order Erysiphene, right? Order Erysiphales. In the order Erysiphales for phylum Ascomycota, the phylum Ascomycota, there are 3 classes, right? Archiascomycetes, Ascomycetes, filamentous Ascomycetes, and the Saccharomycetes. In the Saccharomyces we call it as an yeast group. And filamentous ascomycetes we call it as very important plant pathogens because they are producing filaments, mycelium. Mainly mildew fungi are coming under the class filamentous ascomycetes. So filamentous ascomycetes, you can find an order we call it as an erysipelas. So on these erysipelas, they are producing fruity, right? Clisthosthesia like fruiting bodies. Under the Clisthosthesia like fruiting bodies, so you can find the spores, right? Spores. So there are many genus. One is Bloomeria. Bloomeria causing the powdery mildew in cereals and grasses. So if you are going there in the around the roadsides, sometimes some weeds with the powdery appearances. So this is because of maybe Erysipelas or maybe Bloomeria. Erysipelas or Bloomeria. So we have to identify under the microscope or other tests, right? Powdery mildew cause in cereals, powdery mildew cereals, right? Cereals and grasses, Bloomeria. And Erysipelas are any other herbaceous plants, right? So Livenelia, powdery mildew, tomato, but it's rare case. Microsphaeria and oidium. So an oidium, this is mainly in the tomato, but it is also not considered much. And Photospora and Spherotheca. Spherotheca is they are causing this roses and peaches, peach plants. And Uncinilla. Uncinilla is a very, very important because Uncinilla necata, they are causing the diseases in grapes. Uncinilla necata. Here, Uncinilla necata, they are causing powdery mildew in grapes. It's a very economically important pathogen. So because tremendous yield losses in everywhere in the even these grapes producing countries, including in Sri Lanka also. So farmers are facing very big problem with mildew, 2 mildews. One is Downy mildew, other one is powdery mildew. Downy mildew you would have studied about, studied under the Mycorrhizae, right? Mycorrhizae you would have studied, right? Fernosphoraceae family, not Pitheaceae. Mycorrhizae, Fernosphoraceae family. So Fernospora, right? So Fernospora you would have studied that one is Downy mildew causing fungi. The Uncinilla necata. This is a powdery mildew causing coming under the Ascomycota. There are 2 fungi groups important that are causing Downy mildew and powdery mildew. Powdery mildew coming under Ascomycota, Downy mildew coming under the Chytridiomycota and the Fernosphoraceae family, Pitheaceae and Fernosphoraceae family. I would have studied in the last class. And the third phylum we call it as a Basidiomycota. This is mainly smut and mushroom fungi. Sometimes we call it as a club fungi. Club fungi groups, because they are producing sexual spores. We call it as basidiospores. Basidiospores are produced under the basidium. Right? Basidium is a structure. So under the basidium, you can find the four spores, basidiospores. Other than the basidiospores, I told you there are two more sexual spores. So these fungi commonly producing 5 spores: basidiospores, heliospores, urodiospores, pycniospores, and these heliospores. So there are 5 spores, urodospores. Sorry, urodospores. There are 5 spores the fungi groups are producing. Among the 5 spores, only 2 groups, heliospores and basidiospores, are sexual spores. Right? The sexual spores. Others are asexual spores, but that group we call as a true spores. They are producing fruiting body, we call it as a mushroom, or called as a basidium. Right? Basidium. There are several orders are there, but one order we call it as an Ustuloginalis. We call it as an Ustuloginalis. Under the Ustuloginalis, you can expect the smut fungi. Right, order Ustuloginalis, there are several genuses. One genus we call it as an Ustilago. We call it as an Ustilago medis. So Ustilago tritrici. Mainly they are forming a smut in corn and wheat. Smut diseases producing corn and wheat. Ustilago. We call it as an Ustilago medis, Ustilago tritrici. Another group is there. So kernel smut on sorghum, we call it as an Sporisorium. We call it as a Sporisorium. The Sporisorium coronatum, so Sporisorium coronatum, Sporinorium sogi, they are causing this smut in the sorghum and smut in the loose smut in the sorghum. So there are chances the fungi can cause the smut disease. If the smut is coming mainly in the grind, not in other part, right? Not in the other part. And other order is there, Urodinalis. This in the Urodinalis, you can find a rust fungi. Many rust, especially if you are going there in the temperate regions, especially Australia and America and New Zealand, Pakistan and India, temperate countries and other wheat growing countries. There are 3 rust: leaf rust, stripe rust, and stem rust. It's a very big problem in wheat. Right, very big problem in the wheat. And also coffee rust, you would have heard about in Sri Lanka also in the history. Right, they are causing these Urodinalis, so we call it as rust fungi, cause tremendous yield losses in the coffee. Right, so coffee. So one is we call it as coronatium. Right, so like a corona, you can easily remember that coronatium. The coronatium causing the stem rust in pine. Right, the Fucsinia causing the several rust diseases in the cereals, especially wheat and barley. So for example, Fucsinia tritricina, Formes specialis tritrici. We call it as this one is stripe rust in the wheat. Fucsinia graminis, they are causing the stem rust in wheat. Fucsinia codi, they are causing the leaf rust in the Codium vulgare barley. Right? They are different. Fucsinia tritricina, Formes specialis tritriformis. So there are different subspecies are there. They are causing rust diseases. And Euromyces appendiculators causing the rust of beans. This is a common problem in even the Sri Lanka in the bean growing areas. Then Euromyces appendiculators, they are causing the rust on beans. Right? So this Urodinalis is very important. Other one is there, Exo Basidialis. We call it as an Exo Basidialis. This is mainly causing these coconut trees, Exo Basidium, right? Stem bleeding, right? Exo Basidium, so Basidiocarpic is lacking. So Basidias produce a surface parasitized tissue with Exo Basidialis. So for example, Exo Basidium is causing the ground corn. So not the ground gall, their gall form the stem galls, right? Stem bleeding, stem galls were called as an Exo Basidialis. Another one is there, Ceratobasidialis. Ceratobasidialis paradoxa. That's what I called you, the stem bleeding in coconut. Ceratobasidialis, right? So mainly 2-3 genuses are there, but this telemorphic stage, Sclerotium is coming there, but southern blight of many plants, Sclerotium rolsei. Sclerotium rolsei is telemorphic, but is anomorphic coming under the Ascomycota. That's the problem. So telemorphic coming under the Basidiomycota, this Sclerotium rolsei. So the other one is anomorphic is coming under the Ascomycota, southern blight of in many plants they can cause. Rot of onion, Sclerotium serpivore, rots on onion, stem rots, and damping they are caused by the Sclerotium serpivore. Right? Typhula. So typhula is causing the many problem in the turf grasses. Right? Turf grasses. Another one is the agaricals. You see, under the agaricals, you are studying all the mycorrhizas. Right? All the mushrooms, all the edible mushroom, poisonous mushroom. You see some of the many mycorrhizae also coming under this. That is the confusion, right? So in this genus, Pleurotus is very important, right? Pleurotus is very important. So under the genus Pleurotus, different edible, 3 different edible mushrooms you will study, right, in the practical class, right? Agaricus, Bisporus, Pleurotus or striatis is a fungi, the mushrooms, right? So agaricus under the agaricals. So this Basidiomycota is very important. In the Basidiomycota, you see the cement, rust, and mushrooms. There are 3 different fungi. One is cement. Cement is caused by Ustilogo, and rust is caused by Fucsinia and or Uromyces, Fucsinia and the Uromyces, and other orders, Ceratocystis, the Ceratobasidialis. Ceratobasidialis, they are causing the sclerotium, rot, damping off, and agaricals. Agaricals in the mushrooms, Pleurotus, the genus Pleurotus. Another one is the Apheliforals, right? Apheliforals also there. In the Apheliforals, these are causing some of the diseases in the higher trees, not in the small plants. Here, the enormous of this sclerotium is coming, right? Here also telemorphic is coming here. Sometimes you will study this one is under the Ascomycota. There is some confusion, but the basic concept you should know which are the important plant pathogen coming under the which group. That is very important. And also you should remember that which are the important plant pathogens and its phylogenetic position. For example, late blight causing, damping off causing, powdery mildew causing, downy mildew causing, then blast causing in the rice, Mycorrhizae, they coming under the Ascomycota. Right? Alternaria is causing the early blight in tomato, is coming under the Ascomycota. And biologically important fungi, Trichoderma, coming under the Ascomycota. Important wilt pathogen, Fusarium, coming under the Ascomycota. So for those, we will study detail each and every pathogen. So when you are studying every pathogen, but this classification, basic classification, you read 3 and 4 and 5 times, then definitely you can get which pathogens are important and which is important to you, right? Which is important. So these are the classification of the true fungi. Until now, if you have any doubt, please you can ask, then I can briefly go, right? So this is under the Basidiomycota. Many orders are there, but many important, the 3 important groups of fungi are coming under the Basidiomycota. One is cement fungi, other one is we call it as rust fungi, other one is we call it as a mushroom. Right? So these 3 important fungi are coming under the Basidiomycota. So this is the last section of this fungal classification. Then we will study these major characters of these major fungi. Mainly, I will discuss one Basidiomycota, Psychomycota, Chiroidomycota, and VAM. These three together as a VAM, vascular arbuscular mycorrhizae. Right? So Basidiomycota, as we called as first, we will study the Psychomycota because the order is there. Psychomycota, then Ascomycota, then Basidiomycota. Is in this here I mentioned that in different way, right? So always Psychomycota is in the evolutionary path. First Chiroidomycota. Thereafter, once it evolved into Psychomycota, then it is classified as Ascomycota. Then very advanced fungi coming under the Basidiomycota. Right? Psychomycota, as I told you, they are producing sporangium, sporangiosporsa, asexual spores. Right? So this is the basic characters. This is we call it as a sporangium fungi. Sporangium fungi, they are causing the mold. Right? They are causing the mold in many fruits. Right? Blights and molds. That's what we call it as a rhizophus. Rhizophus, the Psychomycota fungi. The Psychomycota, this how they are producing the sporangiospores. You will observe under the microscope when you are studying under the practical classes. Right? This is, I told you, this is a common lab contaminant of the wheat fungi. Right? Common lab contaminant of the wheat fungi. The wheat fungi. So they are producing the rhizoids as a pseudospores. Through the rhizoids, they are ejecting the enzyme into the substrate. Then they will suck the digestive contents and they are producing sporangiospores are the asexual spores for multiple. So sexual conjugations, right? The sexual conjugations can be happen. We call it as a plus and minuses. Then they will produce a zygospores. Nuclear of these contrasting genotypic nucleus of the contrasting genotypic mycelia come into the contact and fuse together and form a zygotes. This is a very hardy structure. We call it as a sexual zygospores. Right? In the condition, the harsh environmental condition for the survival, they are producing these zygospores. The second group is the Basidiomycota. You see the Basidiomycota, these are the very important fungi. Mushrooms, toadstools. Toadstools, we call it as this is a poisonous fungi. Mushrooms are edibles. That's what we call it as mushrooms are edible. Toadstools are poisonous mushrooms. Poisonous. And bracts and self fungi, the puffy balls and sticking horns and rust and cements. For what but a Sri Lankan condition, you all know, you should know rust, cement, mushroom. These toadstools also important to differentiate this mushroom and the poisonous mushroom. Okay, these four are important. These other three are not important in your condition, but it's in temperate regions, it is very important. The uses of the Basidiomycotas, because mushroom are the food purposes. So the rust and cementa are disease causing. These three are very important. That's what I told you. So rust, uromyces, and rice vaccinia, they are causing the rust. And cement, we call it as an stilogo. And mushroom, they are agaricals, predators. The characters of these club fungi mean Basidiomycota, seldom reproduce asexually. Mainly their target reproduction mode is sexual. That's what I told you, these are advanced groups. They are also producing a fruiting bodies. Under the fruiting bodies, we call it as in basidiocarps. When the basidiocarps, you can find a type-like, flatten-like structures, four structures. Under the four structures, each and every structure, you can find the basidiospores. We call it the basidia. In the basidia, you would have studied the basidiospores. They are also producing annulas, ring-like structure. When you are detailedly study about the mushroom, you will study the each and every part, maybe coming under the next mushroom slides you will study. Like vegetative structures are below ground. They are producing method-like structures, mycelium, spread many everywhere of these land, and it can, whenever the conditions are suitable, these for vertical mycelia, from this horizontal mycelia, they will produce vertical mycelia, we call it as a fruiting body. Through that, they will sexually reproduce and spread. Another group is Ascomycota. The Ascomycota, I told you, we are producing sac fungi, asci, right? Asci fungi. So mainly the yeast and the mildews, right? Yeast and the powdery mildew. Yeast and the powdery mildew and the wilt-causing fungi, the Fusarium, right? Fusarium and important back control agent Trichoderma, they all coming under the Ascomycota. Reproduce sexually as well as asexually. Sexual spores we call it as an ascospore. So ascospore, under this ascus, there are 8 spores. Here this is an asca, right? So sorry, this is an conidia. Conidia, it's an asexual characteristics. Conidia spores. Asexual mode is a conidiospores in the Ascomycota fungi. Asexual spores. Different asexual mode of reproduction is happening in the yeast. We call it as a budding, right? So here Ascomycota, there are 3 different. One is conidia, other one is budding, other one is sexual reproduction producing ascospores. Please, this is an important, how the conidia is formed here, right? So you can see that how it is going and releasing the spores from that fuse together and is forming, and again it is releasing into there, right? So this is a formation of the, this is the conidia, this is an ascospore formation. The yeast budding, you see how it is budding is happening, right? How this budding is happening in the yeast fungi. You see from the mother cells, so it is reproducing. That's what we call as Saccharomyces fungi. Another Ascomycotas, these are causing mainly in the higher plants, right? In the higher plants, these are also producing different type of fruiting bodies. For example, they are users. They are in the turf grasses. They are they are causing the diseases, and plants they are causing the diseases. Saccharomyces we are using as a food. Some are producing antibiotics. For example, Trichoderma we are using as a back control agent. Penicillium we are using. Penicillium is coming under Ascomycota. We call it as a penicillin antibiotic. There are several uses of this Ascomycota fungi. So Chytridiomycota, that's what I told you, is in between the true fungi, in between, some literature is saying in between the low fungi and true fungi, but we are, some literatures, I am following that, I told you, this Agrios, GN Agrios 2005 classification. In this classification, it is there, these fungi are coming under the Chytridiomycota. Right? Some groups are under the Chytridiomycota. Important fungal groups are Pythium and Phytophthora and Downy Mildew. So there are 3 important fungal groups that are causing these tremendous severe yield losses, because we call it as an Pythium causing the damping of, and Phytophthora causing the late blights, and also other fungi group we call it as a Downy Mildew, Plasmapora viticola, that are causing the downy mildew in the grapes, is coming under Chytridiomycota. We are calling the chytrid because they are producing the motile spores. 2 flagellate spores are the asexual spores. Sexual spores are, we call it as a ooze spores. Sexual spores are ooze spores. That's what they are coming under the phylum Mycota. They're coming under the phylum Mycota. So that's all for the basic characters. Another important fungi group is their Mycorrhizae. And this is an application, beneficial. One of the beneficial microorganisms we call it as a Mycorrhizae. Other beneficial organism is their Trichoderma. Trichoderma you will detailedly study in the practical class. I will cover something about Trichoderma, and finally I will take effective microorganisms. Effective microorganisms. So today we are going to continue with the Mycorrhizae. So Mycorrhizae, I told you, these are, we are under the Zygomycota glumales, right? Zygomycota glumales. There is a confusion. Some Mycorrhizae are coming under Ascomycota, or is under the Chytridiomycota, but Now you follow, they are coming under the glomales of the Psychomycota. This is a close as a, there's as like a rhizobium. These are for these fungi also, they are in the soil, but they can survive, multiply with a close association, symbiotic relationship with the plant roots. So they can infect like a rhizobium, and they will help the plants by absorbing the nutrition, absorb for the absorption of the water, absorption of the nutrition, and also these mycorrhizae are helping for the mobilization of these nutrients to immobile form to mobile form, especially phosphorus. These fungi are associated with many plants, angiosperm, gymnosperms, ferns. Angiosperm, gymnosperm, and ferns. So they are primarily they are producing vascules, right? That's what we call it as a mycorrhiza, right? Mycorrhiza. The range of over broad spectrum of interaction. Fungus parasitizes the plants. Plant parasitizes the fungus. Most cases mutualistic, both benefits. Mutualistic. Or sometimes we call it as a symbiotic, and usually there is a problem. But these are mutualistic. These fungi need some of the what is called as a room for multiplication. Right? Room for the multiplication. But plant need these fungi for the nutrition, and some plants even need these fungi for the entire survival. These plants don't have the chloroplast, so these needs survival. There are two types of mycorrhiza. One is we call it as an ectomycorrhizae. Other one is we call it as an endomycorrhizae. Ectomycorrhizae mean they do not penetrate the cell of the plant root. So they are surviving very close association, mainly attached with the epidermis of the roots and rhizosphere. Endomycorrhizae mean they are producing vascules and arbuscules inside the corticel, like a rhizobium. So this is a permanent fixation. From this fixed point, they will produce the mycelia inside the soil. So these vascules and arbuscules are point. So for the transfer of the bridge, the root cells and the fungi, right? Arbusculum. So the arbusculum the mycorrhiza we call it as these are aseptate hyphae. Most widespread mycorrhiza or close association with the many plants. Many plants. Some of these different close association, there are 3 different association with the host specific mycorrhizas. In certain groups of plants only these mycorrhiza can association and have an association, not the other groups. And I will explain to you the next ones. So we'll see ectomycorrhiza. The most conspicuous and easily recognized and better characterized mycorrhiza species are the ectomycorrhiza. Right? So in many plants, these penetrates in cells in between the cortex of the roots. Right? Because I told you, these mycorrhiza mainly they are in the ecto, but these penetrate in the cortex. It will not produce any arbuscules or vascules. From this penetration, they can grow the photosynthetic products or some of the needed for the growth of the mycorrhiza. So if you are taking the root, mainly 40% of the mass weight, right? 40% of the mass or surface covered with the many mycorrhizas. Many mycorrhizas of the many roots, right? This is showing the picture showing that mycorrhiza associated roots, this one. Mycorrhiza not associated roots, this one. Right? So you see how much mass of this mycorrhiza associated root. Why? So because these mycorrhiza also producing like the root hair like structure, like the filaments. These filaments are spread maybe even 15 meters around the plant and able to absorb the nutrient, help to absorb the water and solubilize nutrition to the food. It is an act as a pseudo root. This mycorrhiza act as a pseudo root. You see the close the microbial picture. You see some mycorrhiza, they modified the root, and from that they are producing filaments. You see here how they are producing filaments. This is a root, right? It's an initial infection point. From that, how they are producing mycelium. These mycelia so help to absorb the nutrition by this root. Does it act as a root? Yes. That is a problem. Right, so this census of fruiting body is produced by the different species. Right, census of fruiting by. So this according to the in the soil core, they separate and identify the mycorrhizal root by morphology and hearting net. If it is there in the soil, definitely you can identify by their observation under the microscopic observation. Nowadays, these molecular methods are also there as an RFLP markers and REP markers. They are there to easily identify even whether the immediately after the initial infection without forming the filaments. If you want to know whether the microbial infection is there with that root, definitely you can use this molecular method. Then this Ectomycorrhizae also can survive saprophytically. If the plant is not there, it can saprophyte. But for the culturing, you need some of these specific components, especially cellulose and lignins. Otherwise, so they will not grow. It's very difficult to. So they are depending on the soluble carbohydrate. That's what I told you. There's a photosynthesis. These mycorrhiza need a photosynthetic product for the growth and development. Once its growth and development fully, then it will help the plants to absorb the nutrition and grow the convert this immobile phosphorus into mobile form. Then plant can easily utilize this one. And also they can utilize the carbon sources. In experimental evidences that with radiocarbon, carbon dioxide is given to the roots or the plants. So it was observed that it is there in the fungus. It is indicating that the fungus is using the photosynthetic product from the plant. Up to 10% of the photosynthetic product, these fungus can utilize. That's what we are calling is as a mutualistic effect. Both are getting benefits. But rhizobium is a symbiotic relationship. So only they are not getting any benefit. That they need a root for the survival. Once it's established in the root, they are fixing nitrogen. They are not getting anything from this. Right? So that is a relationship between that. So benefits of tree. What are the benefits of mycorrhiza to the trees? The fungus increases supply of inorganic nutrition to the tree. Is insoluble in the most polyphosphorus are insoluble in the soil. They are helping and they are producing the metad-like structures. So it is help to absorb the water also. We see the extra material hyphae. Here is a plant and the root. From this root, how these mycorrhiza spread? You see how much area is covered. That's what these nowadays scientists are trying to use this mycorrhiza gene to modify the root of the plant or modify the mycorrhiza for the to associate with all whatever the crops needed for the crop under the dry conditions. So mycorrhiza can help now. So it can search for the water. It can convert the nutrition to the even in the barren land. For that purposes, the biotechnology researchers are going on to modify the gene of this WAM, mycorrhiza, or modify the gene of the plant to put the mycorrhiza gene into the plant. This is a pictures, how much of volume you see the plant and the mycorrhiza, how it has been spread. So benefit of the trees, plant hormone produced by the fungi changes the physiological states of the root. So if the root is increased, root area is increased, absorption is increased. So they can protect the plant from the extreme temperatures, pH, and heavy metals. Right? Even the drought conditions, this mycorrhiza can. So when it is indicate that it will screen this whole extreme pHs and heavy metals and reduces this toxicity level, and the plant can survive. And also the mycorrhiza is fully cover the root hairs, which once is fully covered, there is no chances or room for the plant pathogen to penetrate. That's to provide the physical barrier. So the infection site is not there. And also it increases the root exudates that attract many other beneficial organisms. So these are the benefits of the mycorrhiza. So this is another explanation, an arbuscular mycorrhiza. So called as an endomycorrhiza is an arbuscular mycorrhiza. Arbuscular mycorrhiza we call it as an endomycorrhiza. So this endomycorrhiza in arbuscular mycorrhiza you will study even soil sciences also, but I am slightly touching, right? This is even more than 300,000 plants are associated with an arbuscular mycorrhiza. Why we are calling this an arbuscular mycorrhiza? So this is there are 130 species. It belongs to 6 genera. Arbuscular mycorrhiza has been reported. They are producing the chlamydospores. Right? They are producing the chlamydospores, and these other than the chlamydospores, they are also producing vesicles and arbuscules. These are spores, chlamydospores. This is under the cells, plant cells. So they are producing these arbuscules, right? The fossils mycorrhiza. Like I will explain you here how it is they are producing. Here, the chlamydospores, from the chlamydospores germinating, then it will produce mycelium. Mycelium will go and penetrate and root intercellular and intracellular mycelium and penetrate the cortex. So it start to draw the nutrition. Photosynthetic products, 10 to 15% of products. And also here and there, they are producing vesicles. Here, they are producing vesicles. Sometimes they are producing arbuscules. I will tell you here. Vesicle here. Vesicle, so arbuscules. This is we call it as an arbuscules. This is we call it as an vesicles. Arbuscules mean there is no any like road-like structure to draw the nutrition. Vesicles mean so they are producing vesicles inside the root cells. So through that they are drawing the nutritions in photosynthetic products. Right? So in that way, if it is this is similar like rhizobium fixation, similar like a rhizobium fixation. And this is the photos in the picture of the how these vesicles are formed inside the roots. It's an endomycorrhiza. So now you are very clear about what is mycorrhiza, what are the advanced different kinds of mycorrhiza, endomycorrhiza, ectomycorrhiza, and how they are getting association with the plant, what is the association between the plant roots and the mycorrhiza, what are the benefits of the mycorrhiza we have studied. Now we are going to more different mycorrhiza. I told you specific with a certain groups of certain group of a plant. So one is we call it as an orchid mycorrhiza. This orchid mycorrhiza, especially you can find only orchid, not in other groups. Therefore, that is what we call as an orchid mycorrhizae. That is helping to orchid to get the vitamins and nutrition from this orchid. Right? Orchid, this mycorrhiza. Another one is the ericot mycorrhiza. Ericot mycorrhiza mean only plant from the Ericaceae. Ericaceae plant only associated with this type of mycorrhiza. We call it as an ericot mycorrhiza. Ericot mycorrhiza. Another one is there arbitoid mycorrhizae. Arbitoid mycorrhizae mean only Ericaceae plants. This is also some of the Ericaceae plants. This is also some of these Ericaceae plants. So for example, here is an Erica and Vaccinium plants. Here you can see Arbutus and Arctotylus and Pyrola. So these three groups are having this association with arbit mycorrhiza. So these three mycorrhiza specific to certain family of a certain members of the plants. What are members of the plants? That's all for the day. And if you have any questions, please you can ask any questions if you want.